We are here today as part of a National Day of Action Against Racism and Fascism. Actions have taken place over the weekend all across the country in response to the rise of the radical right and racism from fascists and the state. This response came after an anti-racist activist was shot and severely injured by neo-Nazis in Portland, Oregon. The Portland police are saying the shooting was gang-related in order to downplay racist violence and target anti-racist activists in this growing climate of escalating rhetoric and action from the radical right and racist groups nationwide. There has been a wide range of right-wing racist groups forming. Groups like the Minutemen emerged and set the tone for increased violence against migrant communities and their allies. The Minutemen have given way to broader right-wing and racist movements of militias and Tea Parties. We have seen several Tea Party rallies right here on these steps. Michigan now has over 26 different hate groups. Right here in Michigan, earlier this year, neo-Nazi Aryan Nation members distributed homophobic and racist flyers in Auburn Hills. There was a bust of the Hutari militia in rural southeast Michigan, and a National Socialist organization calling itself Battalion 14 led a white pride worldwide march right around the corner in Jackson. Just this past Saturday, the same day as the National Day of Anti-Racist Action, white supremacist and racist Christian identity movement held a rally on the steps of the Midland Courthouse. A KKK member at that rally, Randy Gray, was a member of Ron Paul's Michigan presidential campaign in 2008. We must realize that racists are not just organizing in our communities, but within the structure of the state. Rep. Kim Meltzer has introduced copycat legislation, which would legalize racial profiling and harassment of people of color. HB 6256 would allow police to arrest and detain people based on reasonable suspicion that they are undocumented. Laws like this and Arizona's HB 1070 are direct attacks by the state on immigrant workers and people of color. We are here today because we are not just in opposition to this bill, but to racist anti-worker climate. Corporations and capital can cross borders freely while people are criminalized. Cool. Because of the decisions of bosses and CEOs to disrespect workers here by moving production outside the states where other workers are more vulnerable. The continuing stratification in the global economy has forced immigration. Immigrants are the scapegoats for the recklessness of globalized capitalism. The immigration debate is a smokescreen to deflect attention away from the economic crisis that is caused by the rich and refocusing the blame and attention on working-class people who are just trying to make a living and support their families. The same legal system that gives rights to corporations is denying it to workers. SB 1070 was written to criminalize people who house or provide to undocumented people as well. This is no different than the laws that criminalize abolitionists supporting enslaved people along the Underground Railroad. Laws that are unjust must be opposed by direct and collective action like we see right now in Arizona. We call for a mass resistance of the notion that any human being is illegal. We won't be satisfied with the amended SB 1070 or any other copycat legislation or legislation at all that justifies the criminalization of people of color or raids in our communities and workplaces. Last year there were over 60 people arrested in ICE raids here in Lansing, and just a couple of months ago there were more raids. We must talk about this and have the capacity to respond. While these raids are devastating to individuals and their families, they are just as devastating to our communities. According to a recent Washington Post article, 400,000 people will be deported this year. This number represents 10% more people than the 2008 total under the Bush administration, and 25% more than in 2007. More than that, this number represents people and the attacks of immigrant workers and people of color. The Obama administration has increased deportations and attacks on undocumented workers and families. We should not be under the illusion that the immigration reform efforts will protect people from racists within the state or on the fringe. We must organize ourselves to fight racism in all its forms. Yeah!